This is a warning, a truth buried in myth, and you're about to hear it. Welcome to the Hollow Vale. There are places in the countryside where time feels wrong, where the wind doesn't move the trees, but the trees seem to whisper to the wind. And sometimes, if you walk far enough from the roads, past the last fence post, and into the hills that no one farms anymore, you might find something watching you, not with eyes, but with presence. This is the story of the stone that watches. Back in the early 80s, a man named Harold Finch bought a farmhouse just outside the village of Dunmere in the Welsh countryside. The land was cheap, overgrown, and locals warned him about the old standing stone at the edge of his property. They called it Maen y Gwilt, the Stone of Madness. Harold laughed it off. He was a retired teacher, a skeptic, a rational man. He moved in alone. At first, everything was fine, until he started dreaming. Every night, without fail, Harold dreamed of the stone. In each dream, he stood before it, staring up as the sky turned black around its edges. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't look away. And then, the stone would blink. Yes, blink. Like it had an eye buried deep in its moss-covered surface. When he woke, his neck ached and his eyes burned. He began writing in a journal. "It knows I'm here. I can feel it thinking. It's not stone." Neighbors said he grew quieter, more withdrawn. He stopped coming into town. His dog disappeared. His lights flickered long after he'd gone to bed. Then came the photos. Harold developed film in a makeshift darkroom in the basement. One roll showed only the stone. Dozens of shots, each one slightly different. Sometimes it looked wet. Other times, there were claw marks in the dirt around it. And in one photo, a face, just beneath the surface, eyes wide open, staring straight at the camera. Harold vanished 2 weeks later. His house was empty. No signs of struggle, only the journal, open to the last entry. "It came for me. It walked. God forgive me, it walked." People say you shouldn't go near the stone, but teenagers do anyway. Every few years, someone dares another to spend the night. Most leave before dawn. One didn't. His name was Tommy Reese. Local boy, 18, brash. He brought a flashlight, snacks, and a voice recorder. The audio was recovered days later. Here's what he said. "It's moving. Oh God, it's moving. Not fast, just turning, like it's adjusting. Something's under me. I can feel it breathing through the ground. It's looking at me now. I think it sees inside. It's not stone." To this day, the stone stands, alone, watching, waiting. And if you ever visit Dunmere, ask the oldest person in the village where it is. They'll tell you, but they won't say why. Because they know, some things in the countryside don't belong to people. They belong to the land. And some land is still hungry. There's an old legend among the villagers that the stone isn't just watching, it's learning. From every soul who comes too close, it takes pieces of their memories, their fears, their regrets. And when the time is right, it uses them to call someone else, someone new. In 2016, a paranormal research team tried to investigate the site. They brought cameras, EMF detectors, even thermal imaging. They never released the footage. Only one member survived. He was found wandering near the stone, muttering, "It remembers her. It remembers all of them." He refused to speak of the others, or what he saw. So next time you're walking through the fields, remember, not all stones are silent. Some just wait for someone to listen. And once you do, you may never stop hearing it, calling your name from the roots of the earth. There are also places in the countryside where time forgets to move forward, where old things linger beneath the soil, and where some traditions don't die even when the people who kept them do. This is the tale of a shepherd who never left his flock, even in death. In the remote village of Widmer, nestled deep in the English moors, there lived an old shepherd named Elias Grange. He was a quiet man, always alone, always walking the same path across the hills with his dogs and his flock. No one knew how old he was. Some said he'd been there since before the war. Others claimed he hadn't aged a day in 30 years. But everyone agreed on one thing. He never let his sheep stray. Not once. They always stayed within the same stretch of land, a circle of hills known locally as the Hollow. Locals avoided it after dark, said the air got too still, too quiet, like something was listening. One winter, Elias vanished, just gone. His cottage empty, his dogs missing. The flock scattered for the first time in decades. Search parties found nothing, no tracks, no signs of struggle, only a single boot by the edge of the hollow. A few weeks later, a farmer named Tom Riley went looking for a lost ram. He followed the trail into the hollow. That's when he saw it. A figure standing among the rocks, tall, thin, wrapped in a weathered coat, its face obscured by shadow, and around it, dozens of sheep, standing perfectly still, watching, as if waiting. Tom turned and ran. He didn't look back, but that night, he began dreaming. Of cold hands brushing his shoulders, of wool growing from his skin, of being led up the hill, step by silent step. Each night the dream came again. Each night, he woke with more straw in his hair, more mud on his boots, more wool fibers clinging to his clothes. On the seventh night, he didn't wake up. His body was found at the base of the hollow, eyes wide open, mouth full of grass. Since then, others have seen the shepherd, always at night, always near the hollow. Some say he walks the hills looking for his lost flock. Others believe he's collecting replacements, because those who see him, they start to change. Their sleep grows restless, their dreams turn wet, and eventually, they vanish, leaving behind only silence and footprints leading uphill. One such person was Maggie Henshaw, a school teacher from Manchester who moved to Widmer for peace and quiet. She thought the stories were just rural superstition until she started hearing the bells, soft, distant chimes that seemed to come from underground. She mentioned it to the locals. They told her not to go near the hollow, especially not at dusk. But curiosity has a way of pulling us in. So one evening, after class, Maggie wandered up the hill, alone, camera in hand. She recorded everything. Here's what she wrote in her journal later that night. The sky was turning gray when I reached the top. I looked down into the hollow, and someone was already watching me. He didn't move, just stood there, surrounded by sheep. I wanted to leave, but my legs wouldn't obey. Then he raised a hand, and the sheep began to stare. 2 days later, Maggie's phone was found at the bottom of the hill. It played a short audio clip she had recorded. Here's the transcript. I think I'm losing my mind. I keep seeing him in mirrors, in windows. He's not human, not anymore. Something about this place, it changes people. I can feel it under my skin, like wool trying to grow from bone. She was last seen heading toward the hollow, with a bundle of wool wrapped tightly around her head. So, if you ever find yourself walking the moors after sunset, and you feel the air go still, and the sheep begin to watch, don't look directly at the figure on the hill. Don't speak its name. Just walk. Walk fast. And don't stop until the wind starts moving again. Because in Widmer, the hollow never stays empty for long, and the shepherd is always looking for new lambs. In the heart of the English countryside, far from motorways and modern noise, lies a forest that time seems to forget, Blackmere Wood. It's not marked on most maps anymore. Locals avoid it after dusk, not because of bears or wolves, but because of her, the Weeping Widow, a woman who never truly left this world, and who still waits in the dark for those who dare to listen. Back in the 18th century, long before electricity lit up the villages, there lived a woman named Eleanor Vane, beautiful, mysterious, and utterly alone. She came from an old noble family, but by the time she inherited the crumbling estate at the edge of Blackmere Wood, her name was already whispered with suspicion. They said she had cursed her own brother, that she danced during the fire that burned his wife alive, and that when her husband vanished just weeks after their wedding, no one was surprised, only confused, because no body was ever found, just bloodstains, and the scent of jasmine lingering in the halls. Eleanor stayed in the house long after he was gone. Neighbors claimed to hear her weeping at night, not out of grief, but hunger. Others said she spoke to the trees, offered them wine, lit candles for them, and some swore they saw her walking into the wood at dawn, dressed all in black, whispering names no one recognized. She became a ghost before she died, a shadow among shadows. When World War I broke out, young soldiers passing through the nearby village of Elm Hollow began vanishing near the woods. Each time, the last thing anyone heard before they disappeared, a woman crying, softly, from the trees. One soldier, Private Thomas Greaves, returned from the front with shell shock. He wouldn't stop talking about her, said he saw her standing beneath the trees, face pale, eyes hollow. He said she smiled, then whispered, "Come back soon." Over the decades, others have reported seeing her, Sometimes she's just a shadow between the trees. Other times, she's close enough to touch. If you hear her crying while walking alone in Blackmere Wood, don't stop, don't look back, because if you do, she'll know you've heard her, and she'll remember your voice. There are stories, too, of people waking up with mud on their boots, or bits of moss tangled in their hair, even though they hadn't gone near the woods. And some say that on foggy mornings, you can see her reflection in puddles, watching, waiting, still wearing her wedding dress, still crying. One local historian, Dr. Malcolm Harrow, tried to debunk the legend in the 1970s. He published a book claiming Eleanor had been nothing more than a recluse misunderstood by superstitious villagers. He even went so far as to spend a full night in the forest. He recorded his experience on tape. Here's what he said. "It's not just the sound, it's the feeling, like something is watching me through the bark of the trees. I thought I could explain it, rationalize it. But now I feel like I'm being watched from inside my own head. She's here. I think she's always been here. God help me, I think I understand why she cries." He was found days later at the base of a hill, curled beneath a tree. His eyes were wide open, his mouth filled with wet leaves, and his journal open to a single line. She didn't die, she changed. So next time you're hiking through the countryside and the air turns still, and you hear a woman weeping in the trees, remember, some ghosts don't haunt houses, they haunt silence, and she's still waiting for someone to come home. Some stories end, others wait in silence. But in the Hollow Vale, they all return. Until next time, keep your eyes open. This isn't just a story.